Hey, it's Debbie, the host of the Low Carb Athlete, and I'm excited to talk about amino acids today. Sounds odd, but we talk about them all the time. Essential amino acids for training, fueling, and performing, and also just improving our recovery, our sleep, and being able to keep ourselves from breaking down muscle when we're exercising in a fasted state. So we are going to talk to Angelo Keely. He is one of the co-founders of Keon, and all things Keon I love and trust because I know they do their research, and Ben Greenfield's behind it as well. So we're going to talk about what are essential amino acids versus what we used to always tell people to take, the branch chain amino acids. When should we take them? Why? How much? And timing it, when we do it before workout, after workout. Some people say drink some aminos in your water while you work out if you're doing strength training, and then look at, should I take them when I'm asleep before I go to sleep? Should I take them in the morning when I'm in a fasted state and I'm going to do a low heart rate exercise session? So you will probably have some questions after this podcast. So let me know your questions. Head to debbiepotts.net and you can answer questions or ask me questions that way, or just put it in the comments on our YouTube channel, Low Carb Athlete. So I know we're all about this season on the show, focusing on how we can fuel, train, and perform our best as low carb athletes, but explaining that not zero carbs, not all carbs are bad carbs. Carbs are not evil. Fasting, exercise is important and not important. And that we need to look at the individual. When should you fast and not fast? When should you have carbs? When should you not have carbohydrates? And then we can talk so much about the female athlete, as we are so different than the male athlete. Lots to dive into this season, 2022, this new season of the podcast, really bringing you in experts in all things fasting, ketogenic, low carb, and metabolic efficiency. Because I know so much information out there is not geared towards the athlete and the competitive, ambitious, high-performing individual as yourself. So we have to take this information and then tweak and adapt it to our busy lifestyles, to our exercise training schedule, and figure out how we take this information and then make the ideal day for me, for you. Personalize your nutrition program, your training program, your recovery, your lifestyle program. That's what we do as coaches. And you can get a lot of free information out there, but really remember to make it for you. You're different. You're not the same as myself. What works for you is going to work differently for your spouse, partner, friends. So let's dive into aminos today and figure out how I and you might want the same goal to get stronger as I age, how I can keep my muscles getting stronger, get leaner, and perform my best, as well as look my best as I age up. So let's talk about aminos, protein, and more.
Cool. Let's do it.
All right. I've got the man behind Keon, Angelo Keely, on the show today to talk about all things aminos. So thanks for coming on the Low Carb Athlete podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Debbie.
So I've been a part of Ben Greenfield's journey for, now he's an old 40-year-old. So I think he was in his late 20s when I started following him because I did Ironmans, and just, it's fun to see the Keon. You guys started this in 5 years ago. How many years ago is Keon?
2017. Yeah, the end of 2000. Well, we started the company at the beginning of 2017, but launched the end of the year.
And I shared your your bio background, but it's really interesting to see how much has evolved in the supplement industry itself the last few years, and how do you guys set yourself apart before we dive into specifically aminos?
I think it's really quality. I mean, quality is really like the primary thing that we, I think, take the most amount of pride in. It's really hard to make really good supplements. There's a lot of manufacturers out there. There's a lot of formulators out there. There's just a whole array of research to choose from to say like, hey, this is the good research. all of the raw ingredients that go into products. It takes a lot of attention and a lot of discipline to make a truly quality product. It's not obvious, it's not easy, and yeah, it's really what sets us apart.
And I think, we should explain Keon is supplements, but there's a lot of supplements out there that you can't always trust. And I think a lot of people just don't really realize that when it says, the ingredient list might not say everything that's in there, and that being utilized by your body. Are you absorbing it? So there's so much stuff out there in the market. How do people tell what's good and bad? I mean, I know Keon, you guys research everything, your name, Ben's behind it. Like, what is the difference of the bad stuff out there to good stuff? And how do you know?
Like how to tell as a
Yeah.
consumer.
As a consumer, I think it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I think it really is finding trusted sources that can recommend it to you.
Mhm.
And that could be someone online, like a Ben Greenfield. It could also be your personal trainer. It could be your doctor. It could be other types of really respected blogs and research-based sites that are reviewing supplements. I think another way to look at it is price. If a product costs half as much as what we're charging, I promise you, it's half the quality or worse. You can't really get away with. You could get away with making a poor product that doesn't meet quality standards and selling it for a lot more money. You cannot make a really quality product and sell it for like half the price of what a Keon product is, or a similar company like a Thorn. Like you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so if it's really that cheap, I promise you, you're not getting a good deal.
Well, I always say you get what you pay for too. It's like, clothing. If I could
Yeah,
buy the $10 version from China versus going to buy, Lululemon, it's lasts for 5 years versus 6 months. So I think it's important to look at, the trusted source for sure. I always suggest Keon because I know Ben Greenfield is not going to put his name on anything that's not thoroughly tested and researched, because he is the over researcher. So I think that's an important part. But also, people will go, oh, that's too expensive. I'm going to look at Amazon, and like, you were just saying the prices might be a lot cheaper, but they think they can just buy amino acids. There's 50 different kinds. So what are essential amino acids versus branch chain amino acids is what I want to dive into today and talk about why we need them as
yeah,
athletes.
absolutely. So really, essential amino acids are something that everyone needs, not just athletes. And essential amino acids are the amino acids that your body must take exogenously. Your body cannot create them itself. Whereas there's around 20, kind of depending on how you define what an amino acid is inside the body, there's around 20 total. Nine of them are essential, meaning that you must eat them through food. Others you can get through food as well, and that's great. And if you don't have kind of a robust, diverse diet, you may be missing out on those as well, and they can really help you. I mean, a great example of that is creatine, which is not an essential amino acid, but for some people who maybe don't eat enough of it, like if you are a plant-based eater and you don't eat meat, there is no creatine in any of your protein sources. So you need to eat it in addition to, you probably need to supplement with it, particularly if you're an athlete. So essential amino acids, or amino acids overall, are the things that build up proteins. And those are proteins within your body, as well as proteins that you would eat outside your body. So when you eat a piece of meat, or you eat plant material that has proteins in it, it breaks down into the component amino acids within your body. And your body then uses those amino acids to perform all types of functions within the body. And those include muscle protein synthesis. So your muscles are always breaking down. It's what helps fuel your muscles to be rebuilt. They support neurotransmitter regulation. They actually are the fuel basically for neurotransmitters. For example, tryptophan turns in ultimately to serotonin. As one
Mhm.
example, there's many like that. And so the core difference between essential amino acids and branch chain amino acids is that branch chain amino acids are just 3 of the 9 essential amino acids. And they've become very popular. Probably more like 20, 30 years ago, they really took off as being extremely popular with bodybuilders and with different types of athletes, because what was observed was that the primary branch chain amino acid, leucine, So there's three. There's leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Leucine is very important in combination with the other two for muscle protein synthesis. And like many things, I think you see it a lot in contemporary medicine and contemporary nutrition. People find one thing that works and they think, oh, if I just take this thing in isolation and take a bunch of it, then it will be good for me. What we've discovered over research over the last 20 years is that it is accurate that leucine is the most important factor in muscle protein synthesis. So if you want to build muscle, that's the most important amino acid. And also what's true is that there's a relationship between it and the other two branched chain amino acids, isoleucine and valine, that also are really important to leucine. What we've discovered since then is that if you take those three in isolation without the other six, it can actually have the opposite effect. Because your body needs all 9 essential amino acids in an ideal ratio to stimulate muscle protein synthesis and to sustain it. And if you don't have the other amino acids, your body might actually try to take them out of your existing tissue to support muscle protein synthesis. So it can have an opposite effect. It also can have other types of effects on neurotransmitter regulation. It can create mood issues. It can create appetite issues where you actually get more hungry and can lead to weight gain. So it's not that branched chain amino acids are bad. They're actually really good. It's that you must have the other 6 essential amino acids in conjunction with them to get the benefit of the branched chain amino acids.
And so why can't we get this just by eating protein? Why, or I guess people are not getting enough protein. Why is it so important to take a supplement for essential aminos?
So you absolutely can just get it from food sources, but it really all is based off of your individual needs, your individual health goals. And when I say individual needs, like your age, your health conditions, etc. And in addition to that, it's really like the modern lifestyle and what you can fit in. So ideally, an adult at a minimum would be consuming about 0.5 gram of protein per their body weight. And that's for like a pretty sedentary adult. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should definitely be consuming about 75 grams of protein per day. And then you start to get a picture of how that fits into like your total calorie consumption in a day based off of your kind of macro mix. But if you have any other type of personal health situations that could include you're pregnant or you're a hard training athlete or you're an aging adult, like if you're over 50, your needs for protein become that much greater. And the reason for that is kind of obvious, right? Like if you're exercising a lot, you're breaking down more of your muscle. So you need more amino acids and more protein to fuel it. If you're pregnant, you're growing a human being inside of you, right?
Yeah.
If you're an aging adult, it's a little bit different. As an aging adult, it becomes more difficult for your body to break down protein and to utilize the amino acids that are inside of them. And thus you have to consume more protein to get the same utilization of the amino acids that, say, someone half your age might require. So in that case, you want to be targeting, more like probably 0.75 grams of protein per body weight. So maybe we'll just shift back to like a 100-pound person because it's easier for the math for me, right? So if you weigh 100 pounds, if you weigh 100 pounds, at the minimum, you need to be eating like 50 grams of protein
you
a
probably
day.
should gain weight if you're only 100 pounds. But
probably gain weight.
Maybe you're
Well,
8 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, if you're 5 feet tall, then yeah. But yeah, if you're in any one of these other cases, you probably want to consume around 0.75 grams at a minimum of protein per day. If they're overlapping, you want to consume even more. Like if you're an athlete, if you're a 60-year-old endurance athlete or 60-year-old weight training athlete that's trying to like really train a lot, your needs for protein are that much more. I would definitely be eating at least 1 gram of protein per day to meet my basic needs for muscle protein synthesis. And so then it just comes down to like, is that a lot? It's kind of a lot of protein. So what are the ways that I can get that? And there are very efficient, calorically wise decisions to get that. So for example, something like a whey protein isolate, or if you're plant-based, a soy protein isolate, these provide a lot of protein and all of the 9 essential amino acids at once in a pretty dense format, and you can get a lot of the protein. Or It's why bodybuilders eat lean chicken breast. It's a very efficient source of essential amino acids for a small amount of calories. Um, that said, if you are like busy, you're on the run, you're working a lot, or you're older and it's just hard, like you're not that hungry. It's like hard to eat that much chicken breast. And now you're telling me, you know, I don't know, let's say you're a bigger guy. You're over 6 feet tall, you weigh 200 pounds, you're 60 years old, and you're telling me I got to eat like 200 grams of protein a day. That could feel like a lot. And so in that case, supplementing with essential amino acids can be helpful. The only side point I'd make is that it's really unique actually, is that if I eat a really excellent source of whole protein, a whey protein isolate is like the most ideal source of whole food protein. Half of the protein is essential amino acids, and the other half is other amino acids, which is great. They're good
Yeah.
amino acids for me, but they're not the essential ones that support muscle protein synthesis.
Mm.
So while essential amino acids on their own are not technically protein, I can take basically 15 grams of essential amino acids to get the muscle protein synthesis spike of 30 grams of whey protein isolate.
Wow.
So it's much
Yeah.
easier to consume. And also if anyone who's tried essential amino acids, you take 15 grams, it's not like you feel really full. It's not like you're bloated. It's pretty easy for your body to digest. Now, if you're trying to take that as capsules, it is.
Well, that was a question I had for the end. So we might just throw that in here now.
Yeah.
So for example, if we got Keon capsules, the essential amino acids, one serving is 5 grams of protein-ish.
Yes.
Like
5 grams of essential amino acids.
So yeah, not a protein, but essential amino acids. So
it's the equivalent of 10.
7.
It's an equivalent dose of essential amino acids as 10 grams of a whey protein isolate.
Got it. Yeah.
Sorry, 10 grams of protein in a whey protein isolate.
So you have to take 7 capsules,
Yes.
or you could do a whey shake to get the same amount.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if the goal is you want 5 grams of essential amino acids, here are options. You could take 1 scoop of Keon Amino's powdered drink, right?
Yeah.
You could take 7 capsules, or you could take half a scoop. I'm just using Keon. No one has to buy Keon products, but you take half a scoop of Keon whey protein isolate, and they will all give you the same amount of essential amino acids.
Okay.
And that half a scoop, the only reason I clarified it's not 10 grams of whey protein isolate. It's about, I think, 11.5 grams of whey protein isolate, of which 10 grams are protein. The other 1.5 grams are waters, minerals, and a little bit of fat that's in a whey protein isolate.
Okay.
So, I mean, what I would just say is like, it's up to you. If you don't like capsules, it's like,
yeah, a lot.
take something else. I actually don't, I don't mind capsules, so I don't mind taking, and in some cases, I take 20 grams of Keon aminos, and I don't recommend that. Sometimes, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and I take, and I've gotten used to it. It's like, yeah, it's not a big deal to take 28 capsules, but I'm, like, as my bio says, like, I was raised in a supplement family. I grew up, I mean, I was a little kid. I was given like a handful of capsules to take. So like, it's not a big deal for me. I'm also happy though, putting 4 scoops of Keon aminos in a shaker and shaking up with water and drinking it.
Yeah.
So
just to clarify, so if someone they did the calculations, if it's, 0.5 to 0.80 grams of protein times their body weight in pounds. And if you're over 50, you might need the 1.0 grams times your body weight, right? Yeah. So say it's 150 grams total a day I need to get. That doesn't mean you're saying protein is how much protein, but the amino acids, essential aminos, if I'm taking that before, maybe in the morning when I wake up to exercise, a low heart rate workout, and then I'm going to go lift, I'm going to take some before, maybe drink it during, have some more after. They don't necessarily count gram of protein to amount of amino acids. So they're not total equivalent of protein. Counting our protein, make sure we get our macros a day.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to equate essential amino acids directly to protein because a whole food protein source, whey protein isolate, again, a great example, is an awesome protein source. And half of it is the essential amino acids, and the other half are other good
Yes.
amino acids for you that support other functions in the body, like um, hydroxyproline, proline. Those things are what's in a collagen protein, for example, which are great. They support your joints, they support your skin, they support your hair, etc. And your body can produce them, but if you take more of them, they'll support that function. But if your primary goal is in trying to get this amount of protein in a day, which I do
Yeah.
think is the primary goal of like
Well,
these.
I'm just saying this as an example because everyone says this. So I know
Yeah,
people have questions like, I got to get my macros each day.
yeah. So I'm gonna help get there. So it's like if the deal is you weigh 150, let's just say you weigh, again, let's go to 100 pounds because it's easier. Okay, so you weigh 100 pounds and your goal is to get 100 grams of protein in a day because you're in your 50s, you're exercising a lot, and you like really want to be strong into your old age. Like you want to have great muscle. You don't want it to be a situation where you get older and you fall down and break your hip or something. Um, and you want to stay lean and you want to stay really fit. So your goal is 100 grams of protein a day. If you were to take um, 80 grams of protein and then just 10 grams of essential amino acids per day, you would be getting the equivalent of 100 grams of protein worth of the essential amino acids because in 100 grams of protein and like a really awesome 100 grams of protein, you're actually only going to get 50 grams of essential amino acids.
Got it. Like
So
half.
I think a more practical way of thinking about it is I'll just tell you like how I do it. So, and I'm layering a whole other level on top of this. The most ideal way to stimulate muscle protein synthesis is basically to divide your daily protein intake into multiple feeding windows where you get approximately like somewhere between a fourth and a sixth of your daily protein intake. That's why bodybuilders do this. Bodybuilders basically eat protein every 3 to 4 hours. They wake themselves up in the middle of the night, right, to eat protein to get an extra muscle protein synthesis spike. And that's their focus. Their focus is not ultimate long-term longevity, ultimate long-term cellular health, which there's issues with like the mTOR pathway if you consume that much protein. But their goal is like muscle protein synthesis. Um, basically you would eat these doses of protein every few hours throughout the day. So like what I do is I wake up, I drink coffee, I work out in the morning, I kind of have a fasted morning, and then when I start to get hungry, which tends to be around like 9, and I wake up at like 4:30, something like that. I can make it a while. Um, although I have like I have an espresso, but then I also have a cappuccino. So I get like a little bit of milk fat in there,
Yeah.
but I make it a little while. And then at around 9, I take a big dose of Keon aminos, and I take about 20 grams, right? I could take 15 to 20 grams of that. And so that is going to create a muscle protein synthesis spike. And I'm suddenly going to be creating the most amount of new muscle and supporting new muscle in my body that I could. Then about 3 hours later, or 3 to 4 hours later, I have lunch. And my lunch is basically salad and 30 grams of chicken. Like 30 grams of protein from chicken. So I get another, spike. Then if I'm going through later in the afternoon, if I start to feel like I'm getting hungry again, but I don't really want to like eat again, I would choose either to eat another dose of aminos, to take another dose of aminos, or I could have like a whey protein isolate shake, like put water and a scoop of protein in the blender with ice, blend it up. I've got this awesome snack and I've got another like 20 to 30 grams of protein. And then I have dinner again with like another dose of protein. So by having these doses of protein spaced 3 to 4 hours apart, I maximize the amount of muscle that my body is getting to build. And so I think, as you can see, like the way that I use something like aminos, or I use like something like a whey protein isolate, it gives me the muscle that my body needs. It helps me hit those macros without consuming a bunch more calories throughout the day. And I think that could totally be adapted to someone who, say, is trying to have a longer fasting window, because I know many people really want to have, they want to support autophagy. And with that in mind, you could have a longer fasting period, and then just try to consume, whatever a chunk of the kind of the division of your daily protein needs, like divide it by 4, for example. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you need to get 25 grams of protein a day. Try to divide those up in 3-hour increments, and
Mhm.
you could make 1 or 2 of them be amino acids instead. And that might be easier for you if you're not as hungry, or you just, you can't eat again. But like, yeah, I could drink this. You probably don't want to eat, take 21 capsules, but you could probably drink, 3 scoops of an aminos beverage. And that's a way to be able to hit, it doesn't technically hit your macros, but the idea underneath the macros of the protein is the essential amino acids that you need to support muscle protein synthesis. That's why you need that protein. Like, that's the main purpose of trying to eat that much protein, is to make sure your muscle can be rebuilt.
Mhm. Okay, so a few questions. So we want to grow muscle, so it's timing the protein consumption and amino acid consumption with our exercises well. So if we're doing, example, fasted morning workout, what we often hear is suggestions to eat, or not eat, but have our coffee and our water, sea salt, and then have 7 capsules of aminos as Keon, or drink it. And then I've heard if you're doing a heavy strength training session, is it, what's the guy who's on Ben's podcast? He was saying sip it during the workout and then afterwards have it. So what about timing of taking essential aminos for those that are looking for those strength gains, and also doing fasted workouts so we don't break down muscle?
Great question. So the science is really interesting here. It's actually the case that for a strength workout, it is ideal to take amino acids before and after.
Okay.
Taking during does not really have any specific effect on muscle protein synthesis. What it does do more than anything is it supports, it kind of depends on how long you do it. Like, it's actually more of an issue for like really intense endurance athletes who are in a long-term endurance, activity. They think, oh, I just take, glucose and electrolytes, and that's what's going to fuel me to keep getting through. But you actually can really start to break down muscle, like more than expected. So before a strength workout, if you take 5 grams before, and then you do a strength workout, and you take 5 grams after, that's really the best thing that you can do. The only addition I'd make to that, or kind of I guess nuance I would say, is an even larger dose afterwards would create even more benefit. So if you were, if you're trying to target around, like I'm trying to target around 30 grams of protein, like minimum in a serving. So like for me, if I were to work out and then I take my 15 grams of protein, or sorry, 15 grams of amino acids, I'm going to do the best job to support uh, not breaking down too much muscle and supporting it. And so I may choose to do that instead of taking 5 grams before and then like 5 grams after. And all of this, it becomes very, um, it's nuanced, and it's like what works for you.
Yeah.
I think if you're really just trying to get the most bang for your buck, you would take 5 grams before, you'd work out, and then you'd take like 15 grams. But you could also just take 15 grams after, or you could take 5 grams before and 5 grams after. The science shows that like a little bit before and a lot after is where you
Mhm.
get the most amount of benefit.
And then we should wait an hour and a half to 2 hours after that to eat a solid meal.
So this
Or
is
does that,
interesting. I mean, I guess in terms of eating a solid meal, this goes back to the timing of the
yeah.
intake of protein, amino acids, and muscle protein synthesis. If you eat more protein or more amino acids than you need to get the maximum muscle protein synthesis spike, it does not create any added benefit for you.
Mm.
And so it's hard to know exactly how much you need. Like, I think I need around 30 grams of protein or around 15 grams of amino acids. If I take more than that, all I'm really doing is just eating more calories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just eating more, right? And so
Yep.
if I like it and it's enjoyable and I want to eat more at that time period, that's great, but it doesn't do anything for my body. It doesn't like help me. So really, I mean, if you can wait 3 hours after that
Mm.
and then eat another dose of 30 grams of protein or 15 grams of amino acids. That's the most ideal situation to really support muscle protein synthesis, because waiting an hour and a half and then eating, you're 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 not going to stimulate another muscle protein synthesis spike. The body can't, it doesn't use it like that.
So I was just thinking also of timing when you work out. The best, say you're going to lift weights at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4, and then you're going to eat dinner. So like timing when you should wait, like give a break of your body so it can shift back actually to recover from the workout too. I think part of it is getting in that parasympathetic state so you can actually digest your proteins down properly when we do eat a solid meal, because protein is so much harder to eat. And most people probably need some enzymes to break that down, digestive enzymes. But I just wonder if there's anything, like if you work out, say, around lunch or dinner, is there optimal time you've read about in research of when to time your exercise if you have a flexible workout schedule, and time it to the meals to get the best results for people trying to get lean and strong and lose weight?
It is working out and then eating, I would say, and it's eating a high dose of protein. And so I think it's interesting. Even the way I described my morning earlier, I maybe didn't describe it totally accurate. Like I wake up and I'm up for a few hours before I do my training. And then I do my training and then I take these aminos. So it's kind of timed closer to that 8, 9 a.m. period where I'll do strength training and then I'll take the aminos. Ben kind of does the opposite thing. Like Ben has like a lighter warm up in the morning, but he does like his really hard, I think, like he's always changing everything, but historically it's been like he does this really hardcore workout at like 5.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he's able to sit down with his family and eat this like big dinner, and it's got protein in it, but it's also got other great stuff like carbs that you actually maybe need if you really pushed yourself and your glycogen stores have been like severely reduced. So, I think before a meal, before a high protein meal is ideal. And if that high protein meal can be, really focused on the protein, it works great. So for example, if it can just be a shake afterwards, that's awesome. That said, if you want to pair it with your dinner, like for example, Ben does, that's an awesome solution. And, it creates also kind of a situation where if you've been really disciplined all day, with like discipline in your morning and discipline with your lunch, and then at night, it's like when you sit down with your family and you want to be able to eat rice or like, have a homemade pizza or something like that, then, your body has a better opportunity to break it down.
Yeah. And that's what, another show I want to talk about, and we did this with Rob Wolf, is that not all carbs are evil. And it's when you place your carbs, as, Ben's taught us as coaches that, you save your carbs for nighttime, and it's great, like post workout, so you can absorb those into your muscle for restock the muscle glycogen. But I think a lot of people think nowadays, because we hear keto and fasting, and I'm finding the type A driven individual takes this to the extreme, not listening to those guidelines are not directed towards us, the athlete. It's already doing all the healthy stuff, but then we add on almost another stressor and do it too much. So it's finding, that we can add some carbs. We're not, bad people to eat carbs at night. That might actually benefit you and you're not cheating. Sometimes you need it, but then also, when to time your meals with your nutrition, or with your exercise. So it's more that intuitive training and intuitive fueling, that we're not just eating because we got to get those macros, but just kind of really taking all this information and personalizing your nutrition plan and making it your ideal day for you, the individual, and just not saying, okay, this is, like you just said, you have a routine, Ben has a routine, but I think everyone just tries to copy what you do or what Ben does, and they don't really apply it to their own life and go, okay, am I even hungry? Am I forcing this meal down because I'm trying to get 30 more grams of protein and I'm not even feeling like I need to eat? So it's like, so much information out there. And I think, how to really take what we're saying and, how to get enough protein and how to get those aminos in that works for you to get the more muscle protein synthesis as we get older. We lose that muscle and we want to get stronger and help spare that muscle breakdown. So I think it's such good information to dive into, but really take this information and make it that N=1 experiments, which should be the subtitle of the podcast. N=1. It depends.
I think that's exactly it. I mean, I think it's really this is the kind of trick with the whole, if you get into the health field, whether that's because you're in it professionally because you're a trainer or coach, or you're just really interested in it because you're passionate about it personally, you're going to get fed all this different research. Fed, that's funny, but you're going to get served all this different research, all these different ideas, etc. And there's validity to a lot of them. They're also all very contextual too. Like, so when you study, a lot of the research I've been citing has been studied by certain labs in a very specific context with a certain type of demographic looking at that. And then there's a whole nother group studying keto stuff. And then there's a whole nother group studying these other things. And I think the trick that most people feel really uncomfortable with, because it requires more personal responsibility, is that many things can be true at the same time. It's not like only this thing is true and then or this thing is true. It's like, nah, they're both kind of true, and you have to balance them and figure out how that fits in with your life. And so then when that responsibility comes to ourselves, I think what's most important is just what you're saying. It's like, what do I want? What are my goals? And then the question is like what makes me happy? And how can I actually adhere to that? Because it's like, if you have to struggle so hard to do this thing and you don't even like it, and you can only do it for 2 months and then you quit, like that's like, what was the point of it? And so, it's like, I didn't mean to be ambiguous even earlier with my answer around like when and how to take amino acids. Is it 5 grams before and 5 grams after, or 5 before and 15 after? It's like, there's really benefits to both, and it's like, what's your budget? What's your goal? Are you like, how committed are you? Are you trying to like lose weight right now, or are you really just trying to optimize for physical performance for a race you're trying to do, or strength training, or is it more about your aging? Like there's so many different reasons why you might be thinking about your health. And so I think getting really clear about that, and then considering like, what can I actually like stick to and be happy with, versus thinking there's one truth and I either have to submit to this truth, or like, I'm not good, or I'll never get where I want to be.
I'm not worthy. I think it needs to, I've always said this last few years that it needs to be sustainable, all these different food plans, diets, and just, we always say just your goals to be burning fat, balance your blood sugar, feel good, energized, happy, and, feel great in your workouts and have good sleep at night and all that. But I think it's, for the endurance athlete, if they're training, biking long or training for Ironmans or marathon, how aminos can help us. Because I know back in the day when I started Ironmans 2001, I was taking Hammer Nutrition. I had a baggie for every hour. And I just was told to do this, take my Race Cap Supremes, take my Endurolates, and take my amino acids every hour. I took a bag of pills. And I think, I didn't really understand the why, just like, that's what they say to do. But why is it so important for endurance athletes to also be looking at essential amino acids versus just thinking it's for people lifting weights and bodybuilders?
I mean, the short answer is muscle breakdown happens to us all. And if you are doing that amount of exercise and burning up all your readily available glucose, what do you think gets burned next? You know what I mean? Like, your body starts breaking down the rest of your tissue. And so you need to replenish the amino acids in your body to support muscle protein synthesis. That's really the simplest answer. I think another thing that's really interesting, though, too, is when you're doing intense endurance activities, what can happen is like, and actually Ben's written a lot about this, about like, bonking is not necessarily from the depletion of your glucose. It's actually from amino acids and your neurotransmitters, that your brain chemicals, you don't have enough of the core amino acids just to support your brain to function. And so it's another really great and important reason to take them.
That's the beginning chapter of Boundless. I actually was with him in Ironman Canada at Whistler when he was doing that. And then with Brock and I were at Ironman Hawaii in Kona that year when he's doing that keto experiment. And the reading about it in the Boundless book, beginning of the book, think it's the first chapter saying how Peter Attia taught him that, you need those essential amino acids need to come in each hour as well. Because if you can't think clearly, it's not the bonking because of carbs. It was more the aminos, need for aminos for your brain function.
Which is such a, which again is kind of another example of like, there's a few things true at the same time.
Yeah.
Like literally your body doesn't have enough energy to keep pushing, so it's breaking down the rest of your tissue.
Catabolic.
But also it's like your brain doesn't have enough of the core neurotransmitters to support its functioning. And it's like those things can be happening at the same time.
Yeah, and drinking MCT oil. I remember he's trying to do that in a race, and especially in Hawaii when it gets warm. That sounds just horrible. It's like, give me a different option than drinking ketones on a hot bike ride on the Queen K in Kona. So with the fasting exercise, this is another big topic we talked a little bit about here and there, but a lot of people are into, of course, intermittent fasting, not breaking their fast. And I think there's different rules should apply to people that are athletes that are doing this fasted exercise, and that they can take aminos before they work out. And when is it necessary to actually eat something before they work out, have a little bit more like the whey protein shake? So I think it's this fine line. I'm finding that a lot of people are getting themselves in trouble. Men and women, I see their lab tests when I look at them, it's like, okay, are you doing too much fasting and not enough calories and really creating more damage? So what are your thoughts for fasted exercises in the mornings? And when is it appropriate to, have those aminos, or maybe we need to have a little more calories as something in our coffee?
Yeah, I think it comes down to your goals again. There's not an answer for everyone. I think that the people that are focused on fasting for longevity, that's the primary goal. With that goal in mind, the summary of the science is that extended fasting, whether on a daily basis or some type of more regular multi-day extended fasting, or consistent periods of caloric restriction that don't even include fasting, it's just not consuming enough calories in a day, will support that process. And I'm not an expert on autophagy, so I'm not going to get into it and like make all the arguments, but that's kind of how it breaks down. I think that there are different options that you can consider for that fit best with you. It could be that like, I feel like really sustainably, I can fast for like 20 hours a day, and that works. Or other people, it's like, I like doing like a 7-day fast, once a quarter or something. Like there's different things, and people I think may choose those different options because whatever they mean to them. Like some people love multi-day fast because it has a real psychological and potentially even spiritual component to it. Whereas other people, it's like, it's like too much for me, and I can do the daily thing, right? So those are great options. If it's really about autophagy, I think this is the tricky thing. I think some people say it's about that, but it's really about weight management. Mm-hmm. And I think you just got to get clear with yourself. Is it actually about longevity, or is it about weight management? And if it's about weight management, then really what it comes down to is like daily calorie consumption and the quality of foods. I'm not saying like, but it's interesting. I mean, people have done the videos where they only ate McDonald's for a month, but they were in a calorically depleted state and they lost weight. Like you can. But if that's the case, then like fasting is a great way to limit your daily caloric intake, because like if you don't eat a meal, then you had a few hundred calories less. So I think it's like getting clear about really what you're trying to achieve and why. Mm-hmm. And again, I think too that then if you're trying to balance that with being an athlete, then it kind of becomes this totally different thing. Because what are your goals with being an athlete? If your goals around being an athlete are like, I want to be able to go out and do this race and compete really well, or I want to be able to go on these really exciting bike rides that I can only do if I'm in awesome shape, or I want to be able to play basketball, with my friends in this really aggressive, league, or I want to whatever it is. There's all these different reasons about why you may want that. I think my question would be like, why are you even like, if that's more important to you than this like long-term longevity play, then like, why are you fasting every day for that? Like, I don't think it's going to necessarily support your goals for that athletic kind of competitive spirit. If you have both, well, then you got to like which one's more important and how much and where and how. And I think that actually, I mean, I guess the solution I would provide for that is basically everyone that works at Keon is in this boat where it's like they want to go on adventures, they want to compete in races, they want to be able to lift a lot. Like we just had a team workout. Everyone's super competitive in the team workouts. We want to be able to go, we're going to go on this like multi-day backpacking trip this summer. Like everyone wants to be able to be really fit, right?
Mhm.
But they also want to take care of their body for the long term. So, but that adventure is pretty important. And the idea of being strong for a long time is pretty important. And so if you're trying to balance that, what I would say is, um, you don't necessarily like before a workout, you totally could take aminos, whether it's for endurance or strength training. If it's
Mhm.
for endurance, taking aminos before endurance will not really support, unless it's really long endurance, like you're going on like a 3 hour ride or something. But if you go on like a 30-minute run, it's not really going to support muscle protein synthesis. What it will do is give you a boost of energy. The leucine and all the amino acids makes you feel really awake. It's an awesome way to just kind of like take the aminos, get motivated, go out and do your workout, and it supports you and fuels you. After the workout, it is important. Like if you do not consume the protein, you are not properly supporting, the resynthesis of your muscles. And so taking aminos after your workout or taking a protein source it's really helpful and really important. And if you choose not to, you're basically definitely choosing this long-term autophagy longevity idea over your muscle and your performance and your experience today. You're saying, I want that other thing more. Um, and honestly, the only other thing I'd say too is like you're also saying, I want this ability from like my cells to support me to live longer, even if it means my body's weaker and I have less muscle. Because building and sustaining muscle now is the most important way that you can have muscle when you're 70, 80, etc. Trying to build it then is going to be that much harder. So
Mhm.
I would just I'm biased. I would like emphasize more eating the protein after you
Yeah.
work out or taking the amino acids over that other one. But I can totally see why someone else would think the other thing is more important. It's just not. It's not what's important to me or the people who are closest to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's looking at, like we're saying, fat loss, performance, longevity. What's your goal? And I really like what Rob Wolf is speaking about last couple of years and trying to tie this into my seminars this year is the need for performance gains and maybe, balancing the mTOR cycle, working out, lifting, eating protein with your fasting that we're already improving our growth hormone with lifting weights and doing, strength, getting strength from that and from our protein we eat. He thinks we don't need to be doing this excessive fasting if we're eating right amount of protein for real food and getting good exercise and strength gains. So it's a really interesting conversation. Like, are we doing this the right way if you are an athlete? So it's a whole another conversation, but he's got some good information on that too. It's interesting to hear all these different sides, but it seems like what you're saying is similar to him.
I think it's very similar to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a challenge though. If you just name it, it's like, I mean, consuming a lot of protein, and particularly leucine, like, I mean, things that make things, I, I'm trying to be careful what I say
Thinking.
here. Well, I'm trying to be careful what
Oh,
I
okay.
say. I just don't want to like upset anyone. But it's like they are kind of opposed. That's all I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Like they're
Yeah.
kind of opposed. Like one stimulates the mTOR pathway, the other one doesn't. So
Yeah.
it's like they're to some degree opposed, but it's not like they're opposed like this one's true and this one's wrong. It's just balancing what you want out of life
Yes.
and choosing the right balance for you. And I
Mhm.
do think the idea that you can have everything all at the same time is it's something to move past.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, like look at what your goals are. What's your purpose? I know Dr. Mindy Pels was saying this on her show the other day. I was listening to her and Rob Wolf saying, what is your point of fasting? And then, with people with their exercise for athletes, what's your point of doing fasted exercise? Why are you doing it? And let's figure out, is it right for you to fast? And I fast all the time. I'm not against it. I do it regularly, but I do take my aminos, and I do have the, mushroom creamer, and put a little of that in there. So there's my calories. But I just, that's why I like coaching people and personalizing it. Let's find out what works for you. Is this giving you a better workout and giving you the results that you want? And, look at where you are today and what you're trying to get to tomorrow or
And I mean, I
5
think
years.
my version of fasting looks a lot like what your version is, and that version of fasting is more based off of muscle, having a leaner physique and having good energy today than
Mhm.
it is about longevity. Because if you do consume amino acids, or you consume, whatever, 40, the 40 calories of milk that I consume in the morning, I am interfering with autophagy. Like I'm not in a pure water fasted state, so it's
Mhm.
not going to happen. But it's great for my other goals.
Yeah.
Like if in the morning I eat a bunch of food, or particularly, if I eat like a more traditional, like American diet and eat carbs in the morning, I'll be on a roller coaster. Like sometimes on the weekend or whatever, it's been a while, but like take my kids to the bakery and I'm like, well, maybe I could like have this, this muffin. And then like my day, I'm just like, I'm wanting more of that. And I feel kind of like imbalanced, etc. And so it really works for me to not, and just to wait
Mhm.
until lunch. And I love, getting to eat a bigger dinner. And honestly, a dinner should probably be my smallest meal. If I was really trying to be healthiest, I'd probably like, all this whole fasting thing, we would really fast from like noon probably until like 8 in the morning. But who wants to do that, right? It's way
Yeah.
easier to like flip it the other way. But like I like having dinner with my family, and I like being able to eat a bigger meal. And so I prefer like fast in the morning, have a thoughtful lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it depends on your family schedule. I said that with
Yeah.
Renee Bells. We were just podcasting yesterday saying, I don't have kids, so I can eat my main lunch is usually 2 o'clock, and I'll lift weights at 5:30 at night, nothing intense. And then have some my aminos and creatine. And then some nights I have some bone broth if I feel like I needed more calories and more protein. So I think it depends on your life schedule. But I know we're gonna
From
run
a
out of
pure
time.
from a
Yeah.
pure like from a pure like nutrition standpoint, your thing is healthier than mine.
Well, it's if you lived in Europe, we need to move to Europe because that's what they do. Everyone
Yeah.
comes home for lunch for 2 hours and has the longest meal ever in the afternoon. And, all the towns shut down, and just live in Italy for a while and learn how they eat. So before we finish, because I know we just have a few minutes, anything about sleeping and recovery? Because I know we've heard taking some aminos before bed, and we only have a few minutes. So this is like maybe part two someday. But what are your thoughts on aminos, essential aminos before bed?
I can't believe we haven't actually like talked about this, because
I
it's
know
it's
it's
such
like
it's a,
huge topic.
well, it's interesting timing. When is this podcast going to come out?
Uh, April. Oh wait, yeah, April.
April. So Keon now has a sleep formula out,
Oh, hey.
and that and that sleep formula includes it's amino acid based.
Nice.
And the reason for that is because really, if you get to like the heart of what optimized sleep is, from a behavioral standpoint, it's that I'm able to go to sleep easily. I stay asleep without like major disturbances.
Mm-hmm.
And that like I wake up having had good sleep quality. But that's largely from like being able to sleep without major disturbances. And a lot of that comes down to your neurotransmitter regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few neurotransmitters that are like really important for that, and that some then have a hormonal implication. Two of them that are the most important really are GABA and serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
Serotonin ultimately converts into
Melatonin.
melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people just take the hormone itself of melatonin. So it is wise, or can be helpful, to take certain amino acids, to have enough amino acids throughout the day, enough protein throughout the day, to have protein before you go, in your last meal, but also to potentially supplement with additional amino acids to sleep better, to regulate those. So the three amino acids that we chose are based off of having absolutely the most amount of research behind them. And one of them is an essential amino acid, and it's tryptophan.
Ah.
What's interesting though is if you look at the formulation of Keon aminos, it's formulated more for performance, really. I mean, aminos are made to like as a pre-workout and as a post-workout primarily. Like they're formulated for muscle protein synthesis. They actually have very little tryptophan.
Mm.
Um, the studies behind the proper amount of tryptophan to have a substantive effect on sleep latency, so being able to go to bed, fall asleep, and to sleep with less disturbance and have quality sleep is a gram of tryptophan.
Wow.
Now, again, this is based off of um, basically like a 40-year meta-analysis study. And naturally, there's different size people, et cetera. And so this can be different for different people in the same way that the amount of protein you may want to consume in a day may be different based off your body weight, based off your
Mhm.
current health. But the overwhelming evidence shows that, like for most people, it's a gram. That's the required amount to actually have this
Mm.
improvement. Um, and the tryptophan, basically, the way that it functions is that it ultimately turns into serotonin and then ultimately supports melatonin production. And it's kind of the primary functionary, like the function of how the amino acid works to support sleep.
Hmm.
The other two that are really important are taking GABA directly.
Mhm.
And there's a specific form of GABA, pharma-GABA, that's in our formula that actually all of the science around GABA is using pharma-GABA. Any of the science that's around like relaxation, that's around any of this, it's like all the core studies have been done with pharma-GABA, and it's just a superior extraction and formulation process. So um, GABA is really important because it's actually the most populous neurotransmitter in your brain. It's like 50%.
Hmm.
And it's had tons of studies around it, basically creating a relaxing effect. And it's really just like key to being able to have a steady state of sleep. The other supporting amino acid, and so GABA is obviously not an essential amino. Well, maybe it's not obviously an essential amino acid, but it's not an essential amino acid. Another non-essential amino acid that we include in the formula is theanine. And theanine also has the most amount of clear scientific and research evidence behind it to directly support the improvement of sleep quality. So combining these three together, we basically just took where all the best research showed, and we tested it and worked with it and used, the exact what the research showed, and it worked amazing. It
Mhm.
wasn't like rocket science. It's like when you asked at the very beginning, maybe coming full circle, like why is Keon different as a company? Um, we really are committed to quality, and that starts with what does the research and the science really say? Because we could have just put plenty of companies out there put 50 milligrams of tryptophan in there. It's like, well, what does the meta-analysis say over 40 years of studying this? Like, it doesn't say
Mhm.
50 milligrams; it says a gram.
Wow.
And what is the real form of GABA that actually works best? And what other amino acids out there actually have the best research and science behind them? And it's theanine. And so including all these at the proper dosages, it just makes a killer formula. It's amazing. Oh my God. Do you want to see the bottle real quick? Can I grab it?
Real
I know we're out of
quick,
time.
yeah. I go grab it. I'll talk. So I use my Aura ring, and I would like to see, good reason to have an Aura ring or a Whoop band, like testing your readiness with that supplement. Look at that, sleep.
Look at that. That's it.
Nice.
Now again, no one knows. It doesn't come out
Okay, so I can't share
for a
this
while.
video until April.
Can't show this video until April.
So
But
that's
that's it.
awesome because I know I just was starting to say my Aura score, I sleep well, my deep sleep. I've been really fascinated about what to take before bed and really tweak it because you don't know unless you have a tracker. And to know if like glycine, because I've heard Dr. the Mineral Fix guy, Nickel is big long name. He said, but 3 to 5 grams of glycine. And then you hear about CBD and then, taking aminos. And sometimes I'll wake up and go to the bathroom 3 times. And so I'm just like, okay, what's causing me? I just want to sleep through the night, not go pee in the middle of the night, interrupt my sleep. But, it's great to be able to see what works for you because it's, having maybe I need a more GABA and more tryptophan and having something like that instead of trying all this other stuff. So that's great that you guys research and look at things at a deeper level than other products, which is why I always recommend Keon, not because I work for Ben Greenfield, that I actually trust everything that comes out from him. So it's good to hear. Now, are you having last thing and then I got to run?
Okay.
Uh, whey protein, would they do a different, like I know some people that can't do whey because they're reactive to dairy?
Yeah.
and have a different way, and then not glycine and everything, because everyone, not glycine, stevia. A lot of people, including myself, were getting reactive to stevia when I do food sensitivity tests, because stevia is in everything that we looked at. So something else to think about in your future research of new product development.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in terms of for current products, you can get the unflavored whey protein isolate that doesn't have stevia. It has nothing in it. And it's
Okay.
delicious, honestly. Just even shaking it up with water, it kind of ends up tasting like a milk. Typically, the whey protein isolate, like very few people have allergic reactions to it, even people with lactose
Mm-hmm.
allergies. It's really only if you have like a really significant dairy allergy because it's virtually lactose free.
Okay.
That said, we've considered other protein options and we'd love to make a plant-based protein option. The trick is like being able to produce one that hits our quality standards.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it's tough with things. Yeah, it's just tough in the plant protein space.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I will make sure we get all this information out to people, add more notes into the show notes of the benefits of each amino that is in the Keon aminos and all the products. And people, we get a 20% off code to give you, Debbie plus Keon. So I'll add that in the show notes. So thanks so much for your time tonight. And you can go for your walk now.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. It was great talking with you.